So it's about the presentation name, title is Brick Barns of Lithuanian Manor, the case study of the barn of Stasinė Manor. So it's a case study, but in general we have the overview about what is this barns here.
Century, Lithuania has undergone radical changes in its social order, and each shift in its political and economic life affected the use of the manor buildings and their architectural appearance. And sorry for this short introduction. I'm going to give you on history, but it explains when the manor houses were started to be reused for other purposes in Lithuania. After the First World War, together with the gained independence in 1980, the country experienced transformations, one of the most significant being the land reform. It has transformed land ownership patterns of the newly independent state, and the land reform limited noble estates at 80 hectares, with some exceptions redistributing excess land to landless farmers, peasants. Also, some of the manor buildings were nationalized, and by this reform, hundreds thousands of manors were affected, creating new villages in former manor lands, primarily in agriculturally productive areas of Lithuania. And this reform affected not only lands but the buildings as well. And many seized manor houses, as well as some farmstead buildings, especially the brick ones, were converted into educational facilities, because in 1927-1930 the law of the compulsory four-year primary education for all children started to be implemented. So it's about 100 years after, as we heard in Denmark. Constructing such a large number of new school buildings in a short time was impossible for the young state, so they reused the confiscated manor houses. And here in the slide you can see the land partition plan that was drawn in 1920 for the Stasinė Manor and part of the Stabulė Manor, and over 366 hectares of land were distributed. And from this land were created 35 plots, including one for a school in the center of the Stasinė Manor. After the Second World War, Soviet control brought even more radical changes to property ownership, and all manors were nationalized. The land was absorbed into collective farms. The buildings were used for agricultural purposes and storage buildings, or reconstructed to be used as administrative or community buildings, such as schools again, libraries, and social centers. Some manor buildings were repurposed as residential buildings with multiple flats, and the ones from ex-Soviet Union countries know what we're talking about here. The reuse of the buildings changed their ideological significance, and as seen with the barn houses, for example, which once was a symbol of a prosperous manor, it became a rundown kolkhoz warehouse. But in spite of this, the physical buildings mostly remained, with exceptions, of course, though their conditions varied from moderate to very poor. And I would like to talk today not about the main manor houses, but other buildings. And after 1990, after gaining independence, the manor houses faced new challenges, and most of the primary schools were closed because of the demographic changes and modernization and transportation that allowed students to travel to larger schools. And the collective farm state agricultural enterprises were liquidated, so many of farmstead buildings were abandoned, and the state eventually sold most of these buildings to the private owners. After 1990, state of the most farmstead buildings became even worse, but with some, of course, exceptions. Here you can see just few examples of brick houses, brick barns, and it's not very exceptional in Lithuania to have brick farmstead houses, but the main manor building built from wood, which is more probably pleasant to live in than in a brick house in our climate, as it was actually told. And here are a few examples that illustrate different architectural expression of these barns, from a classical style building in Arnonis, and it's dated at the end of the 18th century, to quite popular 19th century neo-Gothic and classical and all these neo-styles. Usually these expressions were echoing the main manor house architecture and were typically part of a larger farmstead complex. And the state of these buildings vary very much from the Arnonis manor, where it was recently restored, even though it wasn't in a bad condition before, and to other examples where it just is falling apart bit by bit. And the problem with these kind of buildings is that it's very difficult to find use for them. And the case I'm going to talk today, the Stasina Manor, it was chosen as an example of how 20th century alterations affected historical manor buildings. And the manor has not only lost its role as an agricultural management unit, but also its initial architectural expression. Just 40 years after it was built, this Stasina barn was converted into a school, and the adaptation of its structure to the needs of school continued into the Soviet times. Today it serves as a holiday home for residents of Vilnius, and they've taken first steps of preserving this building. Further, I would like to present the findings of the in situ investigation that started in 2023, continued to 2024, and I'm going to be focusing on the architectural structures and polychromic decor of the building and its investigation. And here you can see the last owner of Stasina Manor, Stanisław Koknoblitsky. And the Stasina Manor is known from the 19th century, so it's not that old one. and it is believed to have existed as a subdivision of the nearby Lenchenava manor and belonged to the same noble family, Kognavitsky family. According to historical research that was made by historian Raimonda Rickevičienė, the barn and other buildings in Stesinia were built at the end of the 19th century, from 1880 to 1890, and the surviving elements that form Stesinia Manor estate include the barn, the ice house, remains of the windmill. At the top of the building you can see it was constructed in Soviet times. The smithy, and there on the corner you can see the remains of the abbey, and behind the abbey is the farmhouse. And the representative zone of the manor estate was beside the main manor house, which is marked in a pink color, but it was dismantled in 1930 because it was documented bad condition and was falling apart. And the agricultural zone was formed in the southern part of the manor, and was separated from the main manor area, central manor area, by the windmill. The remaining farm buildings were arranged along the eastern side of the road, and this layout of the manor estate corresponds to the classical arrangement of representative and agricultural zones. During the land reform, the owner of the Lenchenava and Stesinia, both manors, Stasys Kognavitsky, was left with a land quota of 150 hectares of Lenchenava because it was considered as a model farm. But Stesinia Manor, as I mentioned before, was divided into separate plots, and the buildings of the manor were nationalized, and since 1930, Kėdainiai parish introduced compulsory primary education. A new school was allocated in the farm building. And this is the diagram that was made during the in situ architectural research. And you can see that much of the barn's volume and masonry walls has survived. And the current spatial interior layout was shaped through several reconstructions in the 1930s. Sorry, for some reason you can't see the yellow on the diagram, but the current windows were made at that period in one part, and the other part you can see the gray color that marks the later reconstruction period. And the whole inner walls were also made in the period of 1930s. And this is the photograph that was taken in between 1932 and 1938 that shows the reconstructed southern part of the building with the big windows, and the northern part still had the initial granary, the palm building, the windows, the small ones. And this photo helps us to date the reconstructions more accurately. Actually, we could put it in a 6-year period. It was possible to date the photograph as it was related to the issue of the Vilnius passports in 1932, 1938. And a fragment of this passport is visible in the pocket of the man. And we had here in Lithuania the Vilnius passport as a symbolic document issued by the Union of the Liberation of Vilnius, which was under Polish control at that time. And the passports were sold to supporters who would affix stamps on them, symbolizing their contribution to the cause. And above the main door, the main entrance door, you can see Vytis, the coat of arms of Lithuania, and it was probably removed after 1940 when these symbols were banned. This is the cross-section of the building, a part of the cross-section, and you can see how new slabs were installed, and the building lost its initial three-story spatial form. And the initial barn three-story interior plan has not survived, and no traces of wooden constructions were found during the investigation works. But the inner wooden structure would have been similar as seen in the surviving Tabariškės barn. And the place of a ground floor ceiling slab was identified during the in-situ investigation works. Although there were no traces of the barn's second floor ceiling slab found. And the barn's original window openings survived only in very small fragments. Actually, we couldn't uncover all the windows because the owner of the house didn't want us to ruin the view of the house and leave it for many years. So this is the main facade, the eastern barn facade. And the main composition of the eastern facade entrance, including the original stairs and massive masonry railings, remains largely unchanged, although the main door opening initially was a bit bigger, you can see in this reconstruction. And during the polychromy research, what was going together with architectural research, it was conducted by Audronė Kaušinienė, and it was determined that the niche of the triangle pediment above the main entrance was painted black, and in its center the outline of a former shield with traces of red paint was revealed. And the flat surfaces of the pilasters of the risalit were painted white, as well as quatrefoil decorative elements, while the background was black. A part of the interfloor decorative band between the former barn's first and second floor windows has survived to this day, even though it's intersected by the modern windows openings. So you can see in this reconstruction how it crossed the whole building. And as maybe I should go a bit back. I would like to talk about this coral rustic facade, and it was painted dark, almost black color, soot color, and the divisions that were recessed, the flat surfaces were painted white, so it has some kind of resemblance to this Renaissance buildings we were talking about earlier. And the triangle pediment with the side turrets above the risalit of the eastern facade no longer exists now, but we know that it stood at least until 1951 from this picture that owner of the house provided. And we still can see that in 1951 the northern part of the building was still had its initial barn shape. There's also a very interesting element in the northern facade. Small fragment of decorative plaster drapery is seen here with tassels, and it survived. Probably there are some traces beneath the current plaster, but we didn't want to open it because we don't know when reconstruction works would start, the restoration of the building, so it needs a very accurate work to open it and not to ruin the traces that were left. And we can see the original openings for windows and doors in the attic along with their original wooden frames. And we can see that there were two barn period openings, one above the other, used for loading grain and some other cargo that was stored in the building. Also, there are 4 ventilation holes in each northern and southern facade. And the western barn facade had a very barn look, and now it just looks completely different. It has lost its initial architectural view. And the changes in this facade were introduced during the reconstruction in 1930s. The new door opening leading to the base floor was made, and the staircase was arranged in the place of the current staircase. And the wall decor that is typical for the staircase area at that time was revealed, small fragments of it. And the current staircase and the windows in this facade were installed in the second part of the 20th century. Probably around that time, the roof tin sheets were covered with asbestos cement sheets, and we found the interwar roof tin sheets that are remaining in the attic. And it's just to show what is how does it look inside now in the building, and we have still these windows from 1930s in part of the building, and some previous door openings, and some very small fragments of the interwar school wall paintings. And this is the Soviet times school, just to have an idea how it looks now.
Could you go back? This blue one, it is which year more or less, could you imagine?
It's early Soviet period.
50s.
It was trafaretic with trafarete made Just for the conclusion, I would like to say that unlike manor main buildings, other manor buildings could be more difficult to adapt to a new use, and even very difficult to adapt to the use they were meant to, because in farm now they need another kind of buildings for storage, and nowadays the further use of these buildings is unavoidably related to adaptation for the new purposes. And in this case, the restoration solutions for these buildings require detailed in-situ investigation, as usually we don't have a very good documentation of these buildings, and further planning to preserve the remaining elements of the historic structure, and of course a flexible approach to adapt the buildings for these modern functions.
Thank you. That is quite vice versa, because the hotel building from the residential wing in the late 19th century was converted into the bar with lots of small windows, which you can see from the garden side. And that, my question is, please digest and get the questions while I'm asking. Is the owners who are doing this now, having this building, do they want to get back to the Barney, or are they happy with the big windows?
Happy with windows. Because it's impossible to get, you don't have any initial structure left. So it could be complicated to restore the initial barn structure, and then how to live with these small windows and this wooden structure. I don't know.
But is there any discussion?
Because they are using it as a summer house, so they are actually living here. I didn't show the rooms they are using now, just a room that is left abandoned, so not abandoned but not used. So they are living there in summers.
Are there any plans to restore at least some, for example,
I heard they have some, but I guess they still have to decide what parts and.
And who initiated this research? Did they ask you to do this research?
Yes.
They themselves?
Yes.
Oh, very interesting.
Because if they want to make some restoration works, they need all these research to make a project, restoration project.
Okay.
So it is how it goes. Because we don't have any documentation that we could base our projects on, so we need these in situ investigations.
Great, we have some questions.
Aš lietuviškai išversiu. Aš noriu paklausti jūsų kaip architektų restauratorius. Ką jūs galvojate apie tai? Ar jums neatrodo, kad pritaikymą, suprantat, mes vežimą stūmėm prieš arklį. Pritaikymą iškeliam aukščiau už paveldo objektą. Ką jūs galvojate apie tai?
So Dalia asked the question that sometimes we push the priorities. The adaptation is more important than the original heritage stage. So what is your opinion?
It is the most difficult question you could ask, because we see these buildings standing empty, but of course we can't compromise on what is left.
I asked a question not about only this building.
Yes, I understood in general.
General. We know there are opinion in the restoration, yes, that we must to pritaikyti pastatą. And in this adapted,
becomes a
value of the heritage.
No, in my opinion, what is left of original, even not the initial stage, but even later ones, we have to to save it and to restore at least what